So now we're going to talk about TMS, or transcranial magnetic stimulation. Transcranial, like through the cranium or the skull; magnetic, like using magnets or magnetic fields; and stimulation, like activation. So to do this technique, we use a coil like this. And what we do is we turn the machine on and then press this button. And then when that happens, electric current will travel through wires inside this coil, generating an electric field. From Faraday's law, when you generate an electric field, that actually generates a magnetic field as well. So a change in an electric field will then generate a magnetic field. And in this specific, the way that this coil is set up, the electric field causes a magnetic field to be generated right in this spot. So we can then place the coil over different parts of the brain, for instance, and generate a magnetic field in a very specific location. And then this magnetic field will actually generate an electric field in the head so that we can cause neurons to fire.
So let's go over this one more time. When we turn on the machine, current will flow through the coils, generating an electric field. Current flowing always generates magnetic fields. Here we have two coils, so we get two magnetic fields shown as these two cones. Where the magnetic fields overlap, we have the peak magnetic field. So we try to focus this area over the part of the brain we want to affect. Magnetic fields travel very easily through the skull. So we hold the coil over the head, and the magnetic field will then travel through the skull, generating an electric field. Electric fields can actually cause the neurons in the brain to fire now. So what we've done is we've used electric and magnetic fields to actually change the way the brain works. And while we're doing this, we can see how behavior changes. So let's review one more time. We place the coil outside the head and turn it on. Electric current flows through this, generating an electric field, shown in red. This electric field generates magnetic fields, shown in the dotted lines and indicated with the blue arrows. These magnetic fields can easily travel through the skull, and they can then generate an electric field inside the brain, shown with the red circle. This electric field can actually cause neurons to fire. So in this way, we can change brain activity using transcranial magnetic stimulation and observe how the behavior changes.
Alright, so now we're going to test TMS, and we're going to use Mr. Leader as volunteer to help us with an experiment. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to place some electrodes on his muscles in his finger so that we can record the muscles that we're going to be activating.
Here you can see the red line shows the muscle activity recorded from the electrodes on Mr. Leader's hand.
Cool. Alright, so now Mr. Leader is going to help us with an experiment. And what we're going to do is we're going to place this coil over the part of his brain which controls his motor cortex for his right index finger. So the part of his brain that controls his right index finger movement. And what we're going to do is we're going to place this coil, which, as you recall, generates, when you press this button, an electric field will be generated. Electric current will go through these wires, which will generate a magnetic field right in this spot. And that magnetic field will then generate an electric field in his brain. So we'll hold the coil over the part of his brain that we're interested in stimulating or activating. And the magnetic field will generate an electric field, which will activate the neurons in his motor cortex. Then the signal will travel down his spinal cord through the motor neurons in his arm to activate the muscle in his right index finger. And then we'll record that muscle activity with these electrodes we placed, because muscle cells, like neurons, become more positive when they're activated. So now we found the part of Matt's brain which is responsible for controlling his right finger movement. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pulse his brain in that area, and I'm going to make his finger move.
What we're looking at now is the muscle activity recorded from Matt's right hand as we pulse the part of Matt's brain that controls his right hand. This is a way to measure how strongly his right hand muscles are activated. Let's review what we learned. We learned that TMS, or transcranial magnetic stimulation, uses electric and magnetic activity to temporarily change brain activity. By using TMS over certain brain regions at certain times, we can start to understand how different parts of the brain work to do things. In this example, we TMS'd Matt's motor cortex to make his finger move. But TMS can be used over other parts of the brain to examine different functions.